Hey, this is Lorena, and I wanted to do the video for the block swap. I know we started the block swap, I think sometime last month, the beginning of June, or the beginning of this month, and my plan is to have this video up, but you know, life happens. Children, family, bills, whatever happens. We're just gonna get to it, okay? All right, let me show you what the block looks like. It's not a complicated block, but if you're not watchful on those seam allowances and make sure it's 1/4 and not kind of smidge off a bit here and smidge off a bit there, you can literally lose up to 1/2 inch as you build this block, or at least 1/4 of an inch, 1/4. And so it's not a big, ugly, big, hard block, but it has so many seams. If you're interested in the pattern, it will be on Lorena's Quilting Facebook group. You can download the PDF, but this tutorial is the process of making it so my block swappers can, you know, have a visual. If y'all are visual, you know, visual people who see. At this current time on my Facebook group, I only have the pattern for the block. I am creating the pattern for the quilt top. This is hopefully what the quilt top could look like. I don't know about long hair. I'm trying to let it grow out, but I'm a hot person. And anyway, I'm sweaty too. I'm a hot, sweaty person. And the hair don't help. So we're pinning it, but let's get started. 2 ways to do some of the cutting. So I'm gonna share with you one way, which I think is the harder way if you want to do these blocks, and a simpler way. And this comes into play when you're making your 4 patches. You're going to sew those together. And you're going to do your light and your background. So now that you sewed your two 2-inch squares together, you'll have these little strips. This is what your 4 patch will look like. Your 4 patches need to be 3.5 inch square. 2 of the light in the background. We're going to need 2 of the dark and the background, and 1 of the light and dark together. So this is what your set should look like to make the block. There's 2 different ways where you cut yourself those 2-inch squares and then you sew those little suckers together and you make yourself a 4 patch. But I found this other way, which I love, is where you cut yourself 2-inch strips. What you're gonna do is cut yourself a black 2-inch strip, a dark colored 2-inch strip, your light colored 2-inch strip. So now that you have your pieces stripped or cut, you're going to sew your light red to your black or background color, your black to your dark color, and then your colors, your light and darks together. So here's my strip of background with my burgundy, and I'm going to iron towards the dark. Here's my background with my light fabric, and then of course I like to press and then iron towards the dark again. Here's my dark and light set of colors. If you sewed your strip well, your strips should be 3.5. And if you didn't, then you're 1/4 inches off. So I'm gonna cut these, and they should be 3.5 tall by 2. And when you do the strips, instead of sewing those little squares together, you end up having a bundle of the same pieces. Your dark 3.5 inch strip, a light 3.5 inch strip, and a dark 3.5 inch strip. Your 3.5 inch light color to your background color, and then after you sew that and iron it, you're going to sew your dark color to the background color, and you're going to sew those together. And this is what it will look like. And then what you're going to do is, after you've ironed it, you're going to cut into 3.5 distance apart. And we're going to cut these by 3.5. And you're going to go all the way down and do that with all of these. You're also going to have to cut yourself with the black 3.5 inch strips. You're going to come 3.5 inch by 9.5, the same length as these. You're going to need 2 4 patches with a dark with your background, 1 4 patch with your color dark and your light color. These are all 3.5 inches, and your light color with your background, and you need 2. You're also going to need 4 of these that are 3.5 by 9.5, and 2 of these that are 3.5 by 9.5. You're also going to need 2 black or background like that. You want it lights across and darks across, and when you're grabbing your fabric, be mindful of that because you could lose that. So we're gonna sew this together. So you need to make sure when you put this together, this is 9.5. We're gonna go ahead and iron these. We need to measure to see if this is 9.5. And one of the reasons it could be a little bit bigger, that is a very scant 4 seam. And so we're gonna just kind of like re-sew that. So this is the whole pattern. Now we're gonna sew from the center out. I found that if I do the center first, I know that this is supposed to be 9.5 square, is 9.5 by 9.5, which is pretty. Here's a little bit, but it's okay. You can kind of do a scant, but you want to make sure this is 9.5 as you continue on. So one strip to this side, and you sew one strip to this side, and this needs to be across 15.5 by 9.5. I'm doming in a bit here, and it could be how I sewed this seam thicker, so I need to fix that. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a scant 1/4 inch seam when I'm adding these pieces, because I know that it somehow just kind of bows in somewhat as you're building it. So I think if you build this block on a scant 1/4 seam, you'll be okay, but if you're using a 1/4 seam, it kind of like bows in a little bit like that. Now here we're going to go ahead and add our 4 patches. Make sure that the 4 patch that you're adding on to your background strip that is angled, it continues angling in the same color scheme, and you're going to add that to one end of your strip, and you're going to add that to the opposite end, and you're going to make 2 of those. Now we're going to sew these pieces together and make ourselves a row. It needs to be 3.5 by 15.5 when it's together. Go dark across, and these go light across. And these 2 are together. Now I need to put this with this one. 15.5 by 3.5. It's kind of warping a bit, but it's okay. After you have 2 of those done, now you're going to sew that to your center section that you just created, and you're going to sew all the way across. Make sure that your little connecting seams are beautiful, nice, and on point. We're going to sew this to this, and we're also going to sew the next piece together. Now we're going to add the last piece. Now this quilt block ends up being 15.5 by 15.5 when it's completely finished without sewing it on. When it's on a quilt, it will be 15 by 15. All right, so here is the block. All right, I appreciate you. I thank you for watching, and I thank you if you're part of my YouTube community for joining Lorena's Quilting Facebook group and just participating in the block swap. It is really a lot of fun to kind of get to know you in a different way. I appreciate you and love you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.